Fellow members of Parliament from all parties, and forgive me because there's over 212 of us who are new, so I have not yet recognized all the names and faces. So, all members of Parliament, Excellencies, Ambassadors, High Commissioners, ladies and gentlemen, and of course our Imam, the Rabbi, and Father. Thank you for being here this evening. The Coalition for Progressive Canadian Muslim Organizations is a wonderfully Canadian organization. Here we are, recognizing the tragedies, the untold horrors that happened during the Holocaust, and I'll relate that on a personal level in a few minutes. The German Embassy to support the Israeli efforts to make sure this issue is never forgotten. And of course, the fundraising and the energy comes from Canadian Muslims who've done so much for our community. Before we go anywhere else, I want to give from me to you, from the Government of Canada and all the MPs, to all those participating, a round of applause. How typically Canadian. My name's Andrew Leslie, a retired soldier, now a member of Parliament, Chief Government Whip. Who laughed? Okay. Before I go any further, I'd like to thank His Excellency for for hosting this wonderful event tonight. And I think we have a small present for them which should appear right about now. Oh, good timing.
Thank you so much for opening your home.
Thank you, Madame. I am a substitute. The real master of ceremonies is my good friend and colleague, Muriel Bélanger. For reasons completely beyond his control, he is not able to speak. And I admire him for his grace and presence and courage, along with his wife, Catherine, for what they're about to go through, what they have been through, and thank him for his friendship and support to this activity. I'd like to read a letter from the Prime Minister of Canada. I'm pleased to extend my warmest greetings to everyone gathered this evening at the reception hosted by His Excellency Werner Wendt, Ambassador of the Federal Republic of Germany and Canada, to thank those who have worked so hard to ensure that the National Holocaust Monument becomes a reality. The Shoah casts a long shadow over the recent history of the Western world. The systematic murder of millions of innocent men, women, and children is a crime that surpasses human understanding. This monument will be a lasting tribute to those who perished and to the resilience of the survivors. It will also serve as a focal point for visitors to reflect on the importance of remaining vigilant, confronting hatred and intolerance in all their forms. Je tiens personnellement à remercier de leurs affaires Madame Salma Siddiqui, présidente de la Coalition de Progressive Canadian Muslim Organizations, et le rabbin Daniel Friedman, président du Conseil d'édification du Monument national de l'Holocauste. Leur leadership, ainsi que l'important soutien des fondateurs, des partenaires, des amis, assurant au monument une reconnaissance internationale, faisant de celui-ci pour le souvenir, réfléchir et éduquer les générations futures, du même qu'un symbole de notre valeur, comment qu'on les respecte de la diversité des droits humains. Au nom du gouvernement du Canada, je vous offre mes meilleurs vœux de succès dans le parachement de ce projet et je vous souhaite une agréable soirée signée par le Premier ministre Justin Trudeau, who's currently on an airplane returning to Canada. A personal note. In April 1945, my father, a tough gunner major serving with the 2nd Canadian Army, was in the Saxony region of Germany, and they were amongst those who arrived first at Bergen-Belsen. He never talked about the war, as is true of so many combat veterans, but he did talk about that one event which was triggered by a documentary which we saw together when I was a 19-year-old junior officer, just having joined the artillery myself. There were 60,000 survivors. 13,000 lay unburied in fields when they arrived, and a further 13,800 died within the first 7 days of my father's organization arriving there. The camp was actually first liberated by a couple of tough young British officers in jeeps. Then afterwards, the support systems and the various convoys brought in foodstuffs to to try and feed those who had not been fed for so long. Tragically, through no fault of their own, a variety of rich foods were offered to those poor survivors, and many thousands more died in subsequent days. A tragedy that haunted those those rescuers until their end of days. So the Holocaust was real, its effects were tragic and horrendous, and as our Prime Minister just said, lest we never forget. We have to stop this sort of behavior. What you're doing by being here today is bringing together friends, comrades, fellow Canadians to ensure that we remember, we raise funds for the Holocaust Memorial to make sure generations that that follow us won't forget. So thank you very much for being here tonight. It's a true honor. Now I will introduce Rabbi Daniel Friedman and invite him to speak. And I think you all know the rabbi. And I screwed that up. I beg your pardon, Rabbi. I'm supposed to turn it over to the ambassador first. You have my deepest apologies. So let's try this again. Ambassador.
This is an open house ever since it became the German residence back in the 50s, and we have always welcomed people to be here to discuss with each other, to meet each other, not necessarily to share the same view on any issue they wish to discuss, but it was always a peaceful place to assemble and a peaceful place to be together, and it is a wonderful thing that we have this event here tonight, and you are all welcome in our residence.
You're coming back next year.
You are most welcome to do so. Ladies and gentlemen, dear guests, the planned and organized murder of more than 6 million Jews in Europe, the Holocaust, by Nazi Germany, represents the darkest chapter in the history of mankind. It is a breach of civilization of an unprecedented dimension. It is therefore our common obligation to never forget the victims, the millions of women, children, men who died and were murdered during the Shoah. The National Holocaust Monument in Ottawa will help to preserve their memory at a time when the bearers of this memory, the survivors, become fewer and fewer. To meet with survivors of the Holocaust was an unforgettable experience for many of us. Certainly it was for me. And I know from my own 5 children that during their career at school, nothing made a more lasting impression on them than these meetings with survivors. While the National Holocaust Monument in Ottawa, as well as many monuments in other countries, will help to remember the victims, it will also help us to reiterate our commitment to fight anti-Semitism and racism that is growing in many countries in Europe and other parts of the world. Never since the end of the Second World War and the end of the Shoah have more people become refugees than in 2015. More than 60 million people worldwide had to flee their homelands, many of them because of conflicts and war. Many of them were persecuted because of their race or their religion. It is therefore of utmost importance that we really understand where hatred and fanatism can lead to. The reign of terror of the Daesh fundamentalists in the Middle East is the most shocking example of the challenges which we are confronted with. The terrible bombings in Paris, Beirut, Bamako, Ankara and other cities show that the most precious values of human civilization, freedom, equality and fraternity are targeted. But we will be united in our resolve to defend them against those that represent neither religion, nor any idea of human values. No political or economic conflicts that do exist in some parts of the world can justify violence and the persecution of people. No religion can be misused to justify the murder of people. It is therefore a great initiative of the Coalition of Progressive Canadian Muslim Organizations to support the National Holocaust Monument in Ottawa. I once again like to thank all those that support this initiative and are present tonight. Welcome to the German residence.
Tonight is a historic moment for humankind. I lost my great-grandparents in the Holocaust. I never knew them. My grandparents came out of Auschwitz with nobody. My mother-in-law was driven out of Algeria due to Muslim extremism. And here we are on this night in 2015 in the residence of the German ambassador, receiving a donation to the National Holocaust Monument by the Coalition of Progressive Muslim Organizations of Canada. And I think to myself, if my grandparents of blessed memory could see this now, my mother-in-law, may she live a long life, when I tell her of this moment, I don't know if she will believe it. She lost her uncle to Muslim extremism as they left Algeria. And yet tonight, we are here joining as one brotherhood of humankind in a historic moment. I don't have to tell you that the relationship between our peoples, our religions, over the last millennium and a half has been tumultuous. The Coalition of Progressive Muslim Organizations is sometimes criticized, and I've been told this, and no doubt many of you have heard this, that who is it already? It's a small group of Muslims. It's not really reflective of the Muslim population. To those people I say this, we hear this all the time, but who do we hear it about? Well, those who perpetrated 9/11, they were just 20 Muslims. Those who were wreaking havoc in Syria and Iraq, extremist radicals, they're just fringe. Really, most Muslims are not like that. And so if we can say it for the extremist radicals, criminals, those who wish to destroy humankind, then those that are on the other extreme, those Muslims who wish to build humankind, those Muslims who wish to unite us as one human race, they're not just a few. It's a few courageous, brave people who are leading the way for all Muslims, who are showing the way that we too, as Christians, as Jews, should lead the way and fight those who wish to destroy our common humanity. Tonight is this historical moment, the moment that those good people of the world, the vast majority of the world, come together, led by the heroes like Salma and so many others, to make this world a better place, to show that we will not be led down the path any longer by those who wish to corrupt humankind. May we be blessed together as children of all the same God, brothers and sisters of all the same humanity. Thank you.
Good evening, friends, and all of you are present. It's a very difficult evening for me, but I'll try to keep myself up. I want to begin by thanking His Excellency and Mrs. Wendt for opening their home to us for this special event. For us in CPCMO, the vision of IDEA, which inspired our efforts in realizing this event, might simply be described as what it means to be Canadian. We come from around the world, near and far, and we become neighbors and friends. We go beyond our differences of ethnicity, language, and creed to embrace each other, and together in respecting each other as fellow Canadians, we learn to enrich our lives. immeasurably for as the Quran instructs. We have created you male and female and appointed you races and tribes that you may know one another. 49.13 Quran. CPCMO is a non-sectarian umbrella organization that represents a dozen Muslim organizations. We have our executive here, Sohail Raza. I don't know where he is. He's the vice president, and Tahir Gora Aslam, general secretary, and one I count on for a lot of stuff. Advisor, Salim Mansoor, he's also here, and I will be calling him tonight to find out how I did. What motivated us to bring this event together is to show the world that we are all one and nothing separates us. It's a historic event. From far and wide, people are telling us they have not seen an event like that. Quantity doesn't mean anything, it's the quality and the thought that goes into it. This evening's event is likely for the first time ever arranged here in Canada or anywhere else as a result of a Muslim organization's initiative to honor the memory of those who perished in the Holocaust. We are deeply grateful for the support of larger community behind this effort of ours in remembering the victims of the Shoah and in reminding us never to forget the responsibility that is ours in preventing such tragedy befall any people. This event was conceived about 2 years ago. Last year I took an involuntary sabbatical, and that's why we are here today trying to do this event. There are people in this room who know what I went through, and I'm grateful that I'm here, so the event is here. I will be remiss if I do not mention that the idea of fundraising by CPCMO for the National Holocaust Monument in Ottawa came out of a conversation I had with Honorable Jason Kenney. Where is he? Has he gone? I'm immensely obliged to Mr. Kenney for his support and friendship. This event, I hope, is the first of many initiatives CPCMO expects to sponsor in the effort to bridge sectarian and religious differences in our world today. One such event I have discussed with friends to mark the 150th anniversary of founding of Canada is bringing women together from the countries on the littoral of the Mediterranean to discuss shared responsibilities of families and gender that retard development and impede a culture of peace and amity from flourishing. There is an aspiration to that is an aspiration to others. Why women, you may ask? Are we mostly men here? It's all about women. I want to thank a number of people who made this event possible. Margie Oskner, Margie from the Holocaust Development, Rabbi Friedman, and I just noticed a late arrival, Rabbi Bulka from Ottawa. I want to recognize the tireless effort of the organizing committee. Tahira Siddiqui, Rupak Chattopadhyay, I think he's already gone on a plane now, yeah. Javed Sumra, keep on bringing more Muslims to this. We would appreciate that. Romi Gupta, thank you for organizing my life. I appreciate that. Tahir Gora, you are not out of this, more coming. So. Salim Mansoor, for your mentorship, for your wisdom. Thank you for being there. Fred Litwin, my friend, no words can talk about you. Maria Ricci, I already called her a dictator, but give her a big applause. She's done a lot. I'll just take a second to acknowledge my parents, Osman and Fatima Siddiqui, who taught us tolerance and respect for all humankind. Sisters Nasima and Azra, who are always there for me, never knowing what will hit them next. And now, to a very special person in my life, my dearest friend, Honorable Muriel Belanger. As many of you will by now have found out that he is facing some challenges. Catherine, can you come forward, please? Weekend has been challenging, to say the least. After hearing his diagnosis from his doctor on Sunday, he picked up the phone to let me know that what the diagnosis was. And he was glad that Andy has agreed to MC this event. He didn't care about himself. He was saying kudos to me. Next project the CPCMO is announcing for the MENA, where we are going to bring the Israeli women together, is dedicated to my friend Muriel Belanger. And through this announcement, I'm giving Muriel the notice that he's going to be the lead player in this.
I am Captain.
Thank you. Thank you, Andy. And let it be known that I'll be knocking on your doors as well.
She's not kidding.
And my friend, Catherine, wonderful lady, and thank you for having me in your life. Thank you.
Ambassador Wen, thank you so much for your wonderful welcome. Members of the Diplomatic Corps, Vos Excellences, members of the clergy, Saidna, and worthy rabbis, including my rabbi, Rabbi Bolka, has shown up, so good to see him.
Yeah.
And parliamentary colleagues, I should also mention, bring greetings on behalf of my colleague, the Honorable Rana Ambrose, leader of the opposition, who was with us earlier tonight, as well as from a former colleague, the Honorable Tim Uppal, who I was with yesterday at a very sad funeral in Calgary for a great public servant, Manmeet Buller. The Honorable Tim Uppal, actually, to talk about this is a great Canadian story that we are celebrating here tonight in the German embassy with the ambassadors of Israel and Hungary, brought together by Canadian Muslims. Avec Canadiens de toute origine, nous avons les libéraux, les conservateurs, les néo-démocrates, les musulmans, les juifs, les chrétiens, les gens de toute origine, ensemble pour la même démarche essentielle dans l'histoire de l'humanité. Ça veut dire le souvenir du Shoah. And all of this, in a way, began with a private member's bill brought forward in the House of Commons by a Canadian Sikh Member of Parliament, the Honourable Tim Uppal. Only in Canada would this happen. So this is something that we ought all to celebrate. There's a lot of speeches, just make one point, which has been alluded to, but the reason I suggested to, and by the way, let me add to Selma my words of great esteem, affection, and I can tell Muriel that members of all parties in Parliament are going to be rooting for him and for his strength in the months to come, Muriel. So good to see you here tonight. And Selma, as well, for you to have put this all together in the past year. This is not the first gathering of the Coalition of Canadian Progressive Muslim Organizations to assist in the construction of a National Holocaust Memorial. I was at one in Toronto 3 or 4 months ago, and this has been a dream and a project that Selma and her co-workers have been involved in for months, or for at least a year. And the reason this is so essentially important is, let us be blunt, there is a new wave of what we call the new anti-Semitism, to which the rabbi referred. And one of the central tenets of this new anti-Semitism is a virulent hatred of the Jewish people, and particularly of the identity of the collective Jew in the state of Israel. And the truth is this, that much of this new anti-Semitism is informed and fueled and motivated by violent and extreme theological distortions of Islam. Let's call a spade, by Salafist and Wahhabist extremism that seek to dehumanize the Jew, individually and collectively. And that is why it is so essential that we have dignified, strong, powerful, articulate, authentically Muslim voices, particularly in pluralistic societies like ours, that say no, that Islam is that the Islamic community and the Islamic faith recognizes human dignity and rejects the new anti-Semitism in every way, and that is what this project is really about. So thank you for this. Because let's make no mistake, the worst proponents of the new anti-Semitism, for example, the dictatorship of the Islamic Republic of Iran, it is no coincidence that their leadership seeks to eliminate the Jewish state of Israel, and also systematically denies that the Shoah ever happened. We cannot understand contemporary anti-Semitism. We cannot understand the historical anti-Semitism if we don't understand the Shoah as this central fact in Jewish and in many ways in human history. And that is why this monument must be in our nation's capital, and that's why we must have Muslim support for it. And friends, let me close just en disant que les organismes et les individus qui font partie de cette coalition sont les gens courageux, les gens vraiment des principes. The people like Selma and Tahrir Gora and Salim Mansour and all of the others who are involved in these organizations, many of them require literally physical bravery to take the positions that they do in the public domain. And for that, we thank you and we wish you God's protection and great success. Merci beaucoup.
Ladies and gentlemen, first of all, thank you, Jason, for a very eloquent and passionate talk, which quite frankly sums it all up. Only in Canada, bless our country, only in Canada could such a gathering happen. And on behalf of Salma, our Commanding General, and all the distinguished guests, Rabbi, Imam, Father, and all those here assembled, Excellencies, thanks to the caterer, and a special thanks to Moril and Catherine Bélanger, for whom I'm the voice, very privileged to be so. And a special thanks to the German ambassador and his wife and their supporting staff.
On behalf of CPCMO, with the conclusion of the formal part of this evening, I take the opportunity to thank each and every one of you. It has been a privilege for CPCMO to work with the wider community on a project of such historical significance, and hope that this sets the tone for further such collaboration among CPCMO and other communities in this country in the years to come. Thank you very much.
#1 Multicultural Channel. This is TAG TV.